If you're looking to add a bunch of functionality to your 97 and newer F-150, then you might want to consider adding an onboard air system like the Viair heavy-duty option that we have here. Now with onboard air, prospective buyers can power things like air horns, supply load leveling air suspension kits, or an air locker, or power air tools, and maybe most importantly, air up tires after doing some off-roading. Now price point for the all-inclusive system here will be just south of $400, and the install will get a soft 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter from me, as there is some advanced mechanical expertise needed here, but we will give you a more thorough walkthrough later in the video. So if you're watching this video, then chances are you guys already know the value or benefit of running an onboard air system like this and its infinite number of uses. Now this particular option that we're talking about here today happens to be Viair's heavy-duty onboard air system, which will be a few steps above their entry-level system and is good enough to air up to a set of 35-inch tires according to the company. Now you guys have to keep in mind that Viair has a number of different options on the site here, which should appeal to a wide spectrum of truck owners out there, including the constant duty kit, which might be a step or two above this option and will air up to tires 37 inches or larger. Now, in addition to that, that kit will be a little bit more capable overall and handle just about any task. Now, the biggest difference you will find between each of these Viair kits typically boils down to the compressor, in addition to some small other little bits as well. Now, for this kit, you're going to be receiving Viair's 400C compressor, which will draw 26 amps and put out 1.1 CFM at 90 PSI and can be used for 20 minutes straight before needing to be rested for at least 30 minutes. So again, you can use this thing for just about any duty, including airing up those 35s like we already talked about. But if you had a bigger set of tires or needed to use the compressor for prolonged periods of time, you might want to look into a different kit like the extreme duty or even that constant duty kit we already talked about. But let's jump back to the heavy duty kit we have here and talk a little bit more about what this thing will deliver. And you're going to be looking at a max of 150 PSI and a max duty cycle of 33% at 100 PSI. Now for reference sake, the compressor will fill the included 2.5 gallon tank here in about 2.5 minutes and will fill a 35-inch tire from 0 to 30 PSI in roughly 5 minutes per tire. Now besides the compressor and the tank we've already talked about here, this kit will also include roughly 35 feet of this coiled air line, as you can see, and with the clip-on tire chuck. But by the way, guys, you can easily swap that guy out for a standard 1/4-inch coupler or whatever you had in mind if you wanted to. Now this kit will also feature this included dash-mounted gauge panel and switch here, which will basically turn your compressor on and off and tell you how much air or PSI you are currently working with. Now Viair also includes a pressure switch relay right here to automatically kick the compressor on at 110 PSI and shut it off automatically at 150 PSI. Now in the rare event that the relay should fail, Viair also includes a 175 PSI safety relief valve. Finally, they're going to kick in all of the hardware, the wiring, and miscellaneous bits needed to get the system up and running for the first time. Speaking of getting up and running, you're going to encounter a few different options when mounting this system to your F-150. Now me personally, I see a majority of guys going underneath the truck to the frame rail or maybe somewhere underneath the bed. But I've also seen some guys throw it under the hood, if you can find the real estate of course, or even in some rare cases throwing everything inside the cab, which I don't know I would totally recommend because the compressor can get a little warm if it's really being worked. And for the owners who might be a little apprehensive about mounting this thing underneath the truck and maybe getting it a little bit wet, you shouldn't be, because I've got a few buddies who actually have a very similar kit, including the Viair stuff here, that has been fully submerged and keeps on ticking. Now granted, you don't want to do that when the compressor is running, but it shouldn't be an issue for you whatsoever.
All right, first thing we're going to do is start to plumb up our air tank. And we're going to take 2 3/8 compression fittings and put them in each hole here on the tank. Now these do come with thread sealant on them, but I'm going to apply some Teflon tape as well because I don't want any leaks. And I do not want to trace any leaks. So better safe than sorry. Now we can move to the bottom of the tank and we can install our drain, better well known as the drain cock. Next, moving to the top of the tank, we will install the safety relief valve. So included in the pack is a 3/8 to 1/4 inch reducer that we need to use for the pressure switch. So we are gonna install the reducer into the side of the tank first. And then we can install the pressure switch into our reducer. And the last port that we have open in our tank is for the lead line off the compressor. We're not going to install this just yet. We're going to wait till we have our tank mounted up on our truck, and then we can install our compressor line. So we removed our spare tire and we're going to relocate it to the bed of the truck. That's going to give us a ton of room to mount our air compressor and our tank right where the spare tire used to be, with the least amount of holes in the bed as possible. All right, so what we're doing here is mocking up the air tank and marking our holes to where we're going to mount this thing. I'm going to drill 4 1/4 inch holes up here so we can get our air tank mounted up into place. Get our air tank up in place. I'm going to try and do this one-handed. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. All right, so now we're going to mount our compressor. We're kind of limited on places to mount this. There's 100 different places you can actually put this thing. To not make it super permanent, we're going to use a hose clamp for now to get this strapped up to the frame, and we're going to see how well this works. And the first connection we can make is the compressor to air tank. Now that we got both of these things mounted up. All right, so we're gonna start making some electrical connections. I'm gonna start off by taking the ground off the compressor and the ground off of the pressure switch. And I'm gonna ground them right to the chassis of the truck. Now, if it's a painted surface, make sure you grind it down a little bit so it's bare metal so you get a good ground. I'm gonna put both of these wires under the same grounding stud. Clean them up a little bit, zip tie them, and we'll get them mounted right to the frame. All right, and like I said before, we're ground down a little spot on the frame so we get a good ground. We're gonna put both the compressor and the pressure switch ground wires under the same lug, and we got them grounded up. Next thing we're gonna do is mount our switch and our pressure gauge. I'm gonna choose to mount this right here on our trailer hitch. For one thing, it's gonna keep everything in the back of the truck. I'm also gonna have the air chuck come out of our spare tire hole. Since we don't have the spare tire under the truck anymore, everything will be at the back of the truck. Come back, turn your switch on, watch your pressure gauge, watch the tank fill, and everything will be right here. You can also mount this in the cab of your truck if you'd like, but we're gonna choose to mount it back here. All right, so this wire here is going to connect our pressure sensor to our switch on the gauge. I'm extending the wire a little bit longer just to get it to where we need to go. We can connect this wire to the bottom terminal on our switch. And we're gonna just use some zip ties and clean this up a little bit, and we'll move on to our next wire. All right, so this is our power wire. It's gonna go from the battery all the way to the back of the truck. There's 1,000 different ways you can route it. I'm gonna go along the driver's side frame rail next to the brake lines, and that's gonna get us where we need to be. Yeah, we're making our connection here from the wire that's going to come from our battery. This is a fused power wire, and it's going to give our system power. All right, now we can start plumbing up our air system. We have 2 outlets on our tank right here. One is gonna go to our gauge, and the other is gonna go to the yellow coiled up hose that it's gonna give us our air supply. So I'm gonna start with the gauge first. We can take off our compression fitting. We're gonna slide this end onto the hose, and then this end onto the gauge. You really gotta push hard on these guys to get it over the barb. You wanna keep pressure on it while you're tightening this guy up. All right, now we wanna go up to the air tank. I'm gonna measure out some line here. All right, now we got our last line here. We're gonna make the last connection, and this is gonna be the feed to our yellow hose that's gonna come out of our bumper. All right, we're gonna make our last connection here. I left a little slack so we can pull this in and out when we're ready to use it. And anytime we need air, we can come back to our truck, pull our line out. Now, I'm gonna get this boy up to the battery. All right, now we just need to make our way over to the battery with that guy. This is our fused positive cable. This runs all the way back to the air compressor. All right, guys, that wraps up our install for our onboard air system. Be sure to check out more at AmericanTrucks.com.